Hello everybody, I'm Shrikant and welcome to my digital dance film project. I was greatly inspired by this book called The Hidden Life of Trees, What They Feel and How They Communicate, Discoveries from a Secret World. It's written by Peter Wallaben. I was so moved by the chapters in this book and I wanted to just delve deep after reading this book and create a piece of dance choreography inspired by some of the chapters in the book, but there was one particular chapter that I really enjoyed reading, and that chapter is called Trees Aging Gracefully. What a lovely title. And as a dancer, I think we all age gracefully as we grow old, thinking about movements and shapes and different ideas that we can create with our bodies. So I thoroughly enjoyed reading this particular chapter, and I thought, let me just go to a friend of mine's, Raymond, and talk about this book. I had a wonderful time with Raymond, a very gorgeous friend of mine, who really opened me up to the world of trees, the native trees in Britain, and I was completely amazed by his colossal knowledge on native trees in Britain, which allowed me to delve deep and to unearth some of my own creative ideas, and the journey continued.
Before you came, I was agonizing a little bit. I was a little bit nervous. I was thinking, Shrikant's such a positive fellow, and I'm such a negative fellow because I've got many reservations about the way humans are destroying things, and it's hard for me to be fully optimistic all the time. So I was thinking, what can I say that'll be nice and positive? And, well, I guess I have said some things that are positive, and there are many positives. It's just that lurking in the background, one can't put out of one's mind this truth that the human race is a nightmare on the planet. We're the scourge of the earth. And nothing looks like changing anytime soon, except sensible people like you doing nice things like dance, and fairly sensible people like me doing music and so on. So many other people do things that are destructive. Look at the number of houses that are being built in this area, Grimsby. It's horrendous. Every green space seems to be getting houses on it. Why? Who are all these people who are coming to Grimsby from nowhere? Why do we need all these houses? Money, money, money. I was brought up in a place, quite a nice house, and what was particularly nice about it for me was right next to it there was a little copse, and my sister and I spent most of our free time messing about in this woodland, little patch of woodland, right next to the garden. You sort of spilled out from the garden and you were into it. It was magic, and looking back now, we didn't really realise how wonderful that was to have a place like that to grow up in. And of course, back in the 1950s and early 60s and so on, there was still a profusion of wildlife everywhere, and I was mad about wildlife. I was mad about birds in particular. I'm very upset about what's happened to the natural world and to the world in general. We live in terribly frightening times and terribly dangerous times. And sad to say, the vast majority of people, as far as I can see, don't fully appreciate that. And that's because they haven't had the background I've had. They haven't grown up with nature all around them, immersed in it, It was the fundamental thing to me. And trees, of course, were a huge part of that. We used to go and look under the leaves of trees and find caterpillars or even little bunches of eggs that the moths had laid, and then we'd raise them in a jam jar, and pick some leaves every day and put it in the jam jar and raise them to turn to chrysalises and then hatch out as moths. And it was always an incredibly exciting moment when they emerged, and you suddenly saw this quite often quite large moths with a wingspan like that. So these were the things that moved me from an early age. And I've been looking for them ever since. I'm looking for refuges where there are places that I can regenerate some of that youthful vigour and passion, and it's the greatest passion I've ever had. Having said that, I do have another passion, which is music, and particularly playing the guitar. You asked me earlier if I can connect trees specifically to music. Combined with the weather, of course, trees can provide music. The sound of trees swaying in the breeze is a lovely sound, and I'm sure that's part of what people are attracted to when they go out into the countryside, if they can find any around here. So this one here, low down, this is the leaf of a poplar tree. This is a white poplar, which is a native British species, I believe. It's got a very interesting bark, very mottledy. So this is a classic case of the skin splitting a bit to cope with the quickly growing girth of the tree. See, I mean, they are very fast growing. You can see how thick that is, and that was planted in the ground as just a little sapling 15 years ago. And it was towering up above these willows, actually. We had to get a chap to take the top off because it was becoming unmanageable. And you can see the leaves are still sprouting out again, because that always happens with native British trees. You can cut them down, they always grow back again. Unlike foreign trees like conifers and so on, you can't get that same effect. So this is how many people used to earn their living, by coppicing wood, you know, and selling it or burning it as firewood. So it's a regenerative resource, really, wood. And indeed, wooden chairs, wooden tables, you know, wooden arbour. We used to have nothing but wood around us. All this plastic that's destroying the oceans didn't exist. We used wood for everything. These are willows, goat willow. It's a native species, and you can see it has quite a smooth bark, a bit like beech almost, but it's starting to get a little bit knotty and gnarled here and there, a bit like humans. The skin starts to wrinkle as the years pass by. Same with trees. The bark of a tree is very much akin to human skin. Yeah, it has the same properties, that it keeps predators out, and it keeps the moisture in, essentially. But the way that bark looks, as I say, changes over the years and with different species. Here we've got a birch, the silver birch, of course. Again, it's a native species. We're very keen to put species which belong here in Britain rather than alien ones. So nearly all the, well, there are some shrubs in this garden which are non-native, but much of it is native. So we've got native hawthorn in the hedge. We've got a lot of ivy, of course. Ivies, I mean, I don't think many people would call ivy a tree, but you find it on trees, of course, all the time, and it's a great help to wildlife. It provides places for birds to nest. And we've got the holly blue butterflies, which are very lovely, and we always get them all the year. It'll be unusual if we don't see one today. So they're always around, and holly and ivy are the two plants that they tend to favour. Being in nature is always therapeutic. It will always restore your feelings of angst and frustration and annoyance at the many things that frustrate us, you know. You get instant peace if you sit down and surround yourself with leaves. If they're moving, as they are now, you can just faintly hear them. Then it reminds you they're alive.
Thank you.